Kate Murphy's hands shook as the massive alien doors slid open with a deep grinding sound. The young woman stepped into a room that seemed designed to make her feel small and afraid. Everything was built for beings much larger than humans. The ceiling stretched high above her head, and the walls were made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. At the far end of the room sat the largest alien she had ever seen. Commander Vexthul stood nearly 8 feet tall, his body covered in what looked like natural armor plating. His skin was dark green with black markings that ran down his arms like war paint. Most frightening of all were his forearms, each ending in claws that could easily tear through steel. Kate forced herself to walk forward, her boots making small clicking sounds on the metal floor. 3 days ago, she had been Lieutenant Kate Murphy, communications officer aboard the human exploration ship New Horizon. Now she was a prisoner on an alien warship called the Eternal Dominion. The mission had gone wrong from the start. Her team was supposed to investigate strange signals coming from an asteroid field at the edge of human space. Instead, they found a massive alien mining operation. The aliens had destroyed her ship within minutes. Her 5 teammates were dead. Only she survived, and she still didn't know why. Commander Vexthul looked down at her with 4 yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. The words came from a translation device attached to his throat. "So this is the human," he said, and Kate could hear amusement in his voice. "How disappointing." Kate straightened her shoulders and met his gaze. She was scared, but she wouldn't let him see it. Lieutenant Kate Murphy, Earth Space Force, serial number 779421. The alien commander made a sound that might have been laughter. Earth Space Force. How grand that sounds. He stood up from his chair, and Kate had to tilt her head back to look at him. "Tell me, little human, how does such a weak species survive in space? Your bones look like they would break if I breathed on them too hard." "We're tougher than we look," Kate replied. "Are you now?" Vexthul walked around her in a slow circle, studying her like she was an interesting bug. "I have studied the reports from your ship's computer. You come from a world that should have killed you long ago. Violent weather, dangerous animals, diseases that attack your own bodies. How did you not go extinct?" Kate kept her voice steady. "We adapt. We survive. We overcome." "Overcome?" The commander stopped in front of her. "You are barely 5.5 feet tall. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no claws or fangs. Your muscles are weak compared to any real warrior species. What could you possibly overcome?" "More than you might think." Vexthul gestured to a wall screen that showed images from Earth. Mountains covered in ice, deserts that stretched for miles, jungles filled with predators. "You claim your people live in all these places?" "Yes. Impossible. My species, the Zephyrians, are among the strongest in the galaxy. We would struggle to survive in many of these environments. Yet you expect me to believe that soft little humans can thrive there?" Kate felt anger building in her chest, but she kept it under control. "We've lived in the Arctic for thousands of years. We've crossed oceans in small boats. We've climbed the highest mountains and explored the deepest caves. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We're still here." "Pretty stories," Vexthul said with another grinding laugh. "But I see no evidence of this great strength you claim. You were captured easily enough. Your ship was destroyed without landing a single hit on mine. Your teammates died in seconds." The mention of her dead friends made Kate's jaw clench. "We weren't expecting an attack. If we had been ready for a fight, things might have gone differently." "Oh, I doubt that very much." The commander returned to his chair. "The Zephyrian Empire has conquered 17 star systems. We have defeated species far stronger than yours. The Kralix had armor that could stop plasma cannons. The Vorlani could breathe in space itself. All of them fell before our might. What chance could humans possibly have?" Kate looked around the room, taking in the alien technology and weapons mounted on the walls. Everything here was built for intimidation, to make enemies feel hopeless before the fighting even started. But she had seen the records from her ship's sensors. The Zephyrian weapons were powerful, but they were also crude, built for overwhelming force rather than precision. "You might be surprised," she said quietly. surprised. By you? Vexithal leaned forward in his chair. Tell me, little human, what is your greatest military victory? What mighty enemy have your people defeated? Kate thought for a moment. Ourselves. The alien commander blinked his four eyes in confusion. What does that mean? For most of our history, humans fought each other. We had wars that lasted years, sometimes decades. We developed weapons that could destroy entire cities. We created strategies and tactics that let small forces defeat larger ones. We learned to fight in every environment on our planet in every kind of weather, with whatever tools we could find. You fought your own species. Vexthul sounded disgusted. How barbaric. Maybe. But it taught us things that species like yours never learned. We know how to fight when we're outnumbered. We know how to win when we're outgunned. We know how to keep going when everything seems hopeless. The commander was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. And you think this makes you dangerous? I think it makes us survivors. Vexithal made his grinding laugh sound again. Survivors? Yes, I suppose even insects are survivors. Very well, little human. You amuse me. I have decided to keep you alive for now. How generous of you. Do not mistake this for kindness. You are a curiosity, nothing more. A soft little creature from a soft little world. I want to study you to understand how such a weak species achieved space travel. Consider yourself a pet. Kate felt her temper flare, but forced herself to stay calm. And if I refuse to be your pet? Then you will join your teammates. Vexthul gestured toward the door. Guards will take you to quarters near my command center. You will remain there until I decide otherwise. Do not attempt to escape. The Eternal Dominion is a warship built for conquest. There is nowhere for a little human to run. As the guards led her away, Kate could hear the commander's laughter echoing behind her. He thought she was harmless, a weak creature fit only for his entertainment. Let him think that. She had survived the destruction of her ship and the death of her friends. She could survive this too. And maybe, just maybe, she could teach this arrogant alien commander that humans were more dangerous than he imagined. 3 weeks had passed since Kate's capture, and life aboard the Eternal Dominion had settled into a strange routine. Her quarters were small but comfortable, with a bed sized for humans and a computer terminal that could access basic ship information. Vexthul visited her every few days, asking questions about human culture and technology with the air of someone studying an interesting animal. Kate had learned to read the alien commander's moods. When he was pleased with her answers, his four eyes would brighten slightly. When he was frustrated, the black markings on his arms would darken. Today, those markings were almost completely black. The ship's alarm system had been blaring for over an hour. Through her small window, Kate could see stars spinning in patterns that made her stomach sick. Something was very wrong. The door to her quarters opened and Vexthul entered without his usual arrogant swagger. His armor plating looked dull and she noticed stress lines around his eyes. Your people, he said without greeting. They use something called calculus in their navigation, correct? Kate nodded. Advanced mathematics, yes, why? Our navigation array has malfunctioned during a stellar approach maneuver. We are being pulled toward a neutron star. His voice was tight with controlled fear. My engineers cannot calculate an escape trajectory. The gravitational forces are too complex. Through the window, Kate could see the stars moving faster now. The ship was shaking slightly and she could feel the pull of enormous gravity in her bones. How long do we have? 6 hours. Perhaps 7. Vexthul's four hands clenched into fists. I should not be telling you this, but I am curious, could human mathematics solve this problem? Kate stood up from her bed. Maybe. I'd need to see your data and access to your computers. The commander stared at her for a long moment. Kate could see him struggling with himself. To ask for help from the weak little human would be admitting that his powerful species had failed. This is not a request for assistance, he said finally. This is scientific curiosity. I want to see what your primitive mathematics can accomplish. Kate almost smiled. Of course, scientific curiosity. 10 minutes later, she was sitting at a workstation in the ship's engineering section, surrounded by tall Zephyrian technicians who looked at her with obvious doubt. The lead engineer, a female named Krixta, had explained the problem in simple terms. The ship was caught in a complex gravitational field created by the neutron star, two nearby gas giants, and an asteroid field. Every escape route they calculated led to collision or structural failure. Kate studied the data on her screen, translating the alien measurements into terms she could understand. The math was complicated but not impossible. Humans had been dealing with multi-body gravitational problems since the early days of space travel. "Your calculations assume a straight-line escape," she said after an hour of work. "You're trying to fight the gravitational pull directly." "Of course," Crickster replied. "That is how ships escape gravitational fields. Apply thrust and leave. What if we don't fight it? What if we use it?" The alien engineers looked confused. Vexthal, who had been watching silently, stepped forward. "Explain." Kate pointed to her screen, which now showed a curved trajectory that seemed to spiral through the gravitational fields. "We use the gravity of the gas giants to slingshot us around the neutron star. Instead of trying to escape, we fall toward it at exactly the right angle and speed. The neutron star's gravity will whip us around and throw us clear." "That is insane," Crickster said. "If the calculations are wrong by even a small amount, we will be torn apart. If we keep trying to escape directly, we'll definitely be torn apart," Kate replied. "This way we have a chance." Vexthal studied the trajectory on the screen. Kate had learned enough about Zephyrian expressions to see that he was impressed, though he tried to hide it. "Run the calculations again," he ordered his engineers. "Check the humans' work." For the next 3 hours, Kate worked alongside the alien engineers to refine the escape plan. She showed them mathematical techniques that Zephyrian science had never developed, ways of calculating complex orbital mechanics that humans had been using for centuries. The maneuver worked perfectly. The Eternal Dominion dove toward the neutron star at tremendous speed, using its gravity like a vast slingshot. For a few terrifying minutes, the ship's hull groaned under forces that would have crushed most vessels. Then they were free, racing away from the gravitational trap at speeds that would have been impossible to achieve with engines alone. Kate was checking the final calculations when the second crisis hit. A medical emergency alarm echoed through the ship, and she could see Zephyrian crew members collapsing at their stations. "Blood fever," Vexthal explained grimly when he returned to engineering an hour later. "It affects my people during long space voyages. Our medical staff cannot determine the cause." Kate had been thinking about this problem since she first noticed that some of the alien crew seemed sluggish and tired. "Can I see your medical bay?" "Why?" "I might be able to help." Vexthal's laugh was bitter. "You know Zephyrian medicine now?" "No, but I know what it's like to live in a difficult environment." The medical bay was chaos. Dozens of Zephyrian crew members lay on beds, their armor-like skin pale and their breathing labored. The symptoms looked familiar to Kate. She had seen them before in human mountain climbers and deep-sea workers. "It's the atmospheric mix," she told the chief medical officer, a tall alien named Drakvar. "You're giving them too much oxygen." "Impossible. These are optimal atmospheric conditions for Zephyrians. On a planet, yes, but not in the recycled air of a spaceship." Kate pulled up the ship's atmospheric data on a medical computer. "Look at the oxygen concentration. It's 3% higher than planetary normal. For a species that evolved breathing thin mountain air, that's like giving them a constant overdose." Kate explained how humans had learned to deal with similar problems. Early space stations had faced the same issue until they learned to carefully balance atmospheric gases. Too much oxygen could be just as dangerous as too little. "Reduce the oxygen to 95% of planetary normal," she suggested. "Increase the nitrogen slightly to compensate. Your people should start feeling better within hours." Drakvar looked skeptical, but Vexthal ordered the changes made. Within 6 hours, the crew members were back on their feet, and the blood fever was gone. That night, Vexthal visited Kate's quarters again. He seemed different somehow, less arrogant and more thoughtful. "You saved my ship," he said quietly. "Twice." "I helped solve some problems," Kate replied. "That's what humans do, is it?" The commander sat down heavily in the chair across from her bed. "Tell me about your military history. Not the wars between your people, but how you fight." Kate spent the next hour describing human military tactics. She told him about soldiers who fought in jungles and deserts, about battles won through patience and endurance rather than overwhelming force. She explained how human armies had learned to use terrain and weather as weapons, how they could disappear into environments that would kill their enemies. Your people adapt, Vexthul said when she finished. Even in captivity, you study your surroundings and find ways to survive. It's what we're good at. Yes. The commander was quiet for a long moment. I begin to think I may have misjudged your species. Kate looked at him carefully. The arrogant alien who had mocked her 3 weeks ago was still there, but something had changed. In his yellow eyes she could see the beginning of respect. Maybe, she said, but I'm still your prisoner. Yes, Vexthul agreed, but perhaps not for much longer. The Coalition headquarters on Zirion Prime was the most intimidating place Kate had ever seen. The massive space station hung in orbit above a red gas giant, its angular towers reaching out like the claws of some enormous metal beast. Ships from a dozen different species docked at its ports, each one designed to inspire fear in potential enemies. Kate stood in the center of the Grand Assembly Hall, surrounded by representatives from 12 alien species. Each one was more frightening than the last. The insect-like hive tar clicked their mandibles as they studied her. The crystalline Chardonnay hummed with harmonic frequencies that made her teeth ache. Worst of all were the Drakhi, genetic super soldiers whose muscles bulged beneath skin that looked like living metal. At the head of the assembly sat Supreme Marshal Kraktor, a being made entirely of living crystal that shifted colors as he spoke. His voice sounded like breaking glass when it came through the translation system. So this is the human specimen, he said, his form flashing red with what Kate guessed was amusement. Commander Vexthul claims that this creature's species might be worthy of consideration for Coalition membership. Vexthul stood at attention beside Kate's platform. The human has demonstrated remarkable problem-solving abilities and resilience, Supreme Marshal. Her people may possess qualities that would benefit the Coalition. Qualities? Marshal Kraktor's crystal body turned a deeper red. Look at it, Commander. This creature is barely larger than a child of most of our species. Its hide is soft, its claws are dull, and it has no natural armor. What possible use could such a being have in warfare? Kate forced herself to remain calm as the assembled aliens discussed her like she wasn't there. She had expected this. Vexthul had warned her that the Coalition leadership would not be easily impressed by a human. They had built their empire on strength and fear, conquering species after species through superior firepower. Perhaps, said General Tuscara of the Hivetar, her mandibles clicking rapidly, we should simply eliminate this specimen and move on to more important matters. Wait. Marshal Kraktor held up one crystal in hand. The commander has made claims about this species that intrigue me. If humans are truly as capable as he suggests, then this one should be able to prove it. The Supreme Marshal gestured, and a section of the floor opened up. From below rose a platform containing 7 metal pedestals, each topped with a different colored crystal. The Warrior's Gauntlet, Kraktor announced. 7 trials that test the combat worthiness of potential Coalition soldiers. No non-Coalition species has ever completed more than 3 challenges. Kate looked at the 7 crystals, each one representing a trial that could kill her. The red crystal meant gravity resistance. The green one was environmental adaptation. Blue was combat reflexes. Purple represented mental fortitude. Yellow was strategic thinking. Orange meant endurance. The black crystal at the end was the pain threshold test. If the human can complete all 7 trials, the Supreme Marshal continued, then perhaps we will consider her species worthy of further study. If she fails. He left the threat unspoken. Kate glanced at Vexthul. The alien commander's expression was unreadable, but she could see worry in his 4 yellow eyes. He had not expected this. I accept, Kate said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast hall. The first trial took place in a chamber where artificial gravity could be increased to lethal levels. Kate had trained in high-gravity environments during her military service, but nothing had prepared her for 4 times Earth's gravity. The weight pressed down on her like a mountain, making every breath a struggle. Most Coalition species came from worlds with gravity similar to or lighter than Earth. As the gravity increased, Kate realized she had an advantage they hadn't expected. Humans had evolved on a heavy world, and their bodies were designed to function under considerable gravitational stress. She completed the obstacle course in the gravity chamber, much to the amazement of the watching aliens. Her movements were slow and careful, but she never fell or gave up. The environmental trial placed her in a chamber filled with toxic gases that would have killed most oxygen-breathing species within minutes. but Kate had studied the atmospheric data during her weeks on the Eternal Dominion. She knew that humans could hold their breath far longer than most aliens realized. She completed the required tasks while holding her breath for over 6 minutes, something that impressed even the Hivetar. The combat trial was more difficult. She faced a Zephyrian warrior in hand-to-hand combat, and despite her training, she was clearly outmatched in terms of raw strength. But Kate fought smart, using the alien's size and aggression against him. She won by endurance, wearing him down until his powerful strikes became slow and clumsy. The mental trial involved psychic assault from a telepathic species. Kate's mind was battered by alien thoughts and emotions designed to break her will. But human minds, it turned out, were naturally resistant to psychic intrusion. Where other species had organized, logical thought patterns, human minds were chaotic and unpredictable. The psychic attacks found no purchase in her consciousness. The strategic thinking trial presented her with a complex three-dimensional battle scenario involving multiple fleets and unknown variables. Kate solved it using principles of guerrilla warfare and asymmetric tactics that the Coalition had never encountered. Her solution involved sacrificing larger ships to position smaller, faster vessels for devastating hit-and-run attacks. By the time she reached the endurance trial, Kate was already exhausted. The test required her to remain functional for 72 hours without sleep, while performing various mental and physical tasks. This was where her human heritage truly showed. Humans were persistence hunters, evolved to outlast prey over vast distances and long periods of time. While other species relied on short bursts of intense activity, humans could maintain steady effort for days if necessary. Kate completed the endurance trial, though she was swaying on her feet by the end. The final trial was the pain threshold test. Neural stimulators attached to her nervous system would gradually increase in intensity until she begged them to stop. The average Coalition soldier lasted through 7 levels before breaking. Kate endured 12 levels before the watching aliens called a halt to the test. She had not begged them to stop. She had simply stood there, tears streaming down her face, and endured. When it was over, Kate collapsed to her knees on the platform. Her body was battered. Her mind was fuzzy from exhaustion, and every nerve felt like it was on fire. But she had completed all 7 trials. The Grand Assembly Hall was silent. Even Marshal Cractor's crystal body had gone completely clear, a sign of shock among his species. "Acceptable," the Supreme Marshal said finally. "The human has demonstrated basic competency." Kate almost laughed. Basic competency. She had just done something that no alien species had ever accomplished. And they called it acceptable. However, Cractor continued, this demonstration only proves that humans might be suitable as low-level soldiers. It does not qualify them for Coalition membership or recognition as a warrior species. For that matter, the specimen is now a potential security risk, having observed our training methods and facilities. The crystal being's meaning was clear. They were going to kill her. Kate tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't support her weight. She was spent, with nothing left to give. That's when Vexthul stepped forward. "I invoke the right of claim," the Zephyrian commander announced, his deep voice echoing through the hall. The Grand Assembly erupted in shocked murmurs. Kate had never heard of the right of claim, but from the aliens' reactions, it was clearly something significant. Marshal Cractor's crystal body flashed through several colors before settling on an angry orange. "The right of claim has not been invoked in over 2 centuries, Commander, and never for an alien species. The law is clear," Vexthul replied. "Any warrior who demonstrates exceptional courage and skill in battle may be claimed by another warrior as being worthy of protection and respect. I claim this human as a warrior of worth, and if the Council rejects your claim," Vexthul's 4 hands moved to the weapons at his sides, "then I will defend my claim in single combat, as is my right." Kate stared up at the alien commander in amazement. He was risking his life for her, challenging the entire Coalition leadership to protect a human he had once mocked as weak and worthless. "Very well," Marshal Cractor said, his crystal form now pulsing with dangerous red light. "You will face our champion in combat. If you win, the human goes free and her species will be granted recognition as worthy of respect. If you lose, both of you will die." A section of the floor opened up, revealing an arena below. In the center of the arena stood the largest being Kate had ever seen. It was a Drak-high super soldier, 9 feet tall and covered in muscle that looked like living armor. Its eyes were black pits, and when it moved, the floor shook beneath its feet. Vexthul looked down at Kate one last time. In his yellow eyes, she could see something she had never expected to find there. Respect. Kate was taken to a medical bay to recover while Vexthul prepared for his duel. The alien doctors worked quickly to heal her injuries from the gauntlet trials, but they could do nothing for her exhaustion. She lay on a medical table, watching through a window as workers prepared the arena below. She couldn't understand why Vexthul was doing this. 3 weeks ago, he had called her a weak little creature fit only to be his pet. Now he was risking his life to protect her. The change didn't make sense. An hour before the duel, Vexthul came to see her. The proud alien commander looked different now. His armor was polished to a mirror shine and his weapons were freshly sharpened, but there was something in his posture that spoke of uncertainty. Why? Kate asked when he entered the medical bay. Why are you doing this? Vexthul was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the arena. Do you know what I was before I became a commander? He asked finally. Kate shook her head. I was a line soldier, a good one, but nothing special. I followed orders. I fought when commanded, and I believed that strength was the only thing that mattered in the universe. He turned to look at her with his 4 yellow eyes. I rose through the ranks by being stronger, faster, and more ruthless than those around me. I conquered worlds and defeated enemies, and I thought that made me wise. What changed? You did. Vexthul sat down heavily in the chair beside her bed. When I first saw you, I saw everything I had been taught was weak. Small, soft, defenseless. But then you saved my ship with mathematics my people had never imagined. You solved a medical crisis that our doctors couldn't understand. You completed trials that were designed to be impossible. Kate tried to sit up, wincing as her bruised muscles protested. Any human could have done those things. That is exactly my point. Vexthul's markings darkened with what she had learned was excitement. Any human. You are not special among your people, are you? You are a communications officer. Not a scientist or a warrior, yet you accomplished things that amazed the greatest minds in the coalition. I just used what I learned in school and training. Yes, you adapted, you learned, you overcame. These are not the actions of a weak species. The alien commander leaned forward. For 3 weeks I have watched you. You never broke under captivity. You never begged or pleaded. Even when I mocked you and your people, you maintained your dignity. That is strength, Kate Murphy. Real strength. Kate felt tears forming in her eyes. You're going to die fighting that thing down there. Perhaps. The Drakhi champion is the most dangerous warrior the Coalition has ever produced. He has never been defeated in combat. Then why risk it? Why not just let them kill me and move on? Vexthul stood up and checked his weapons one final time. Because I have learned something from you, little human. I have learned that there are different kinds of strength and different ways to fight. You have shown me that wisdom is more valuable than muscle, that creativity is more dangerous than claws. That won't help you down there, won't it? The alien commander smiled, an expression that looked strange on his fierce features. Tell me, Kate Murphy, what weaknesses did you observe in Coalition military doctrine during your time on my ship? Kate thought about it. She had watched the Zephyrian crew train and had studied their tactical displays. You rely too much on overwhelming force. Your strategies assume that the biggest and strongest warrior will win. You don't adapt once a battle begins. Exactly. And what would humans do differently? We'd use the environment. We'd change tactics mid-fight. We'd turn our opponent's strength against them. Kate paused, understanding dawning on her face. You're going to fight like a human. I'm going to fight like you taught me to fight. The duel took place 2 hours later in the great arena beneath the assembly hall. Representatives from all 12 Coalition species filled the viewing galleries, eager to see if the arrogant Zephyrian commander would survive his challenge. Kate watched from the medical bay window as Vexthul entered the arena. He looked tiny compared to his opponent. The Drakhi champion stood 9 feet tall and weighed at least 400 pounds. His skin was like living metal, and his muscles bulged with unnatural enhancement. When he moved, his footsteps cracked the arena floor. The rules were simple. The 2 warriors would fight with traditional weapons until one was dead or yielded. No armor was allowed, only natural hide and scales. The Drakhi champion carried a massive warhammer that looked like it could crush a small vehicle. Vexthul had chosen 4 curved blades, 1 for each of his hands. The fight began with a roar from the champion that shook the arena walls. He charged forward like a living tank, his hammer swinging in devastating arcs that would have pulverized anything they touched. But Vexthul wasn't there when the hammer fell. The Zephyrian commander had learned something during his weeks with Kate. He had learned to think like a human. Instead of meeting strength with strength, Vexthul used speed and agility. He darted around the arena, forcing the champion to chase him. The massive Drakai warrior was powerful, but he was also slow and clumsy. His hammer strikes shattered the arena floor but never found their target. For 10 minutes, Vexthul avoided every attack while landing quick strikes with his blades. None of the cuts were deep enough to seriously wound the champion, but they were accumulating. The Drakai's metal skin was beginning to show dozens of small cuts. The champion grew frustrated and began taking greater risks, swinging his hammer in wider arcs and leaving himself open for longer periods. Vexthul took advantage of every opening, his 4 blades dancing around his opponent's defenses. Then the champion made a mistake. Enraged by his inability to land a solid hit, he raised his hammer high above his head for a devastating downward strike. The move left his entire torso exposed. Vexthul didn't hesitate. All 4 of his blades struck at once, piercing the champion's chest in a perfectly coordinated attack. The massive warrior staggered, his hammer falling from nerveless fingers. For a moment, the arena was silent. Then the Drakai champion collapsed to his knees and toppled forward, dead before he hit the ground. Vexthul stood over his fallen opponent, breathing heavily. His armor was dented and his markings were pale with exhaustion, but he was alive. He had done the impossible. The viewing galleries erupted in shocked murmurs. Marshal Kraktor's crystal form flashed through a dozen colors before settling on a resigned blue. The right of claim is upheld, the Supreme Marshal announced. The human will be released and her species will be granted recognition as worthy of respect. But Kate barely heard the announcement. She was staring down at Vexthul, who had looked up at her window and was smiling. The alien commander who had once mocked her as weak had just risked everything to protect her. And in doing so, he had proven that both their species were capable of growth and change. Later, as Kate prepared to leave the coalition station, Vexthul came to see her one final time. "This is not goodbye," he told her. "The coalition will be opening diplomatic relations with your people. I have requested to serve as our representative in those negotiations, and they agreed. After what happened today, they agreed to many things. It seems that defeating their champion has given me considerable influence." Vexthul paused. "I hope we will work together again, Kate Murphy." "I hope so too, Commander." As Kate's transport ship prepared to leave for human space, she watched through the viewport as the Eternal Dominion moved into formation beside her. Vexthul's ship would escort her home, ensuring her safe return. The alien commander who had once called her weak had become something she never expected. He had become her friend. 6 months had passed since Kate's return to human space, and the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The small human colony of New Geneva had become the center of diplomatic activity between humanity and the coalition. Ships from a dozen alien species now docked regularly at what had once been a quiet frontier outpost. Lieutenant Commander Kate Murphy stood in the command center of the newly built diplomatic station, watching through the main viewport as another coalition vessel approached. She wore the blue uniform of the Earth Space Force Diplomatic Corps, with rank insignia that reflected her rapid promotion following her return from coalition space. The approaching ship was the Eternal Dominion, now serving as the official coalition embassy vessel. Kate smiled as she watched it dock with the practiced precision that had become routine over the past few months. Commander Murphy, her aide, Ensign Peter Kane, approached with a datapad. "The coalition delegation is ready for today's briefing. They're asking specifically for your assessment of the new joint training protocols." "Tell them I'll be right there," Kate replied, still watching the viewport. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of activity. Kate had been assigned as humanity's primary liaison to the coalition, working directly with Vexthul to establish the framework for cooperation between their species. It had not been easy work. Many humans remained suspicious of the aliens who had destroyed the New Horizon and killed Kate's teammates. Many coalition species still saw humans as weak creatures unworthy of respect, but slowly, carefully, progress was being made. The conference room was filled with beings that would have terrified Kate just months ago. Vexthul sat at the head of the table, His forearm spread across multiple data screens as he reviewed tactical reports. Beside him sat Captain Sarah Kim of the Earth Space Force, the human military's representative to the Joint Training Program. "The results speak for themselves," Captain Kim was saying as Kate entered. "Human tactical flexibility combined with coalition firepower is proving extremely effective in the simulations." General Tuscara of the Hivetar clicked her mandibles in what Kate had learned was agreement. "The human strategy of dispersed command authority has improved our response times by 37%. Kate took her seat at the table and activated her own data screen. The joint training exercises had been her idea, a way to test whether human and coalition forces could work together effectively. The early results were promising, but they were about to face their first real test. "We've received confirmation," Kate announced to the assembled group. "The void consumed have been detected in the Kepler sector. 3 star systems have already gone dark." The room fell silent. The void consumed were the coalition's oldest enemy, a species that literally consumed entire solar systems, leaving nothing behind but empty space. They had been quiet for over a century, but now they were moving again. "How many ships?" Vexthul asked, his markings darkening with concern. "Intelligence estimates at least 200 vessels, possibly more. They're moving in a coordinated pattern toward the inner coalition worlds." Captain Kim leaned forward. "What are our response options?" "The coalition is assembling a fleet of 1,500 ships," General Tuscara replied. "But our previous engagements with the void consumed have shown that raw numbers are not enough. They adapt to our tactics quickly and have technology that we do not fully understand." Kate looked around the table at the assembled military leaders. Each represented a species that had fought the void consumed before and lost. The coalition's strategy had always been the same: massive fleets, overwhelming firepower, direct confrontation. It had never worked. "What if we try something different?" Kate suggested. "Different how?" Vexthul asked. "Human military history is full of examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through unconventional tactics. Instead of meeting them head-on, we hit them where they don't expect it. Fast strikes, guerrilla tactics, asymmetric warfare." General Tuscara's mandibles clicked skeptically. "The void consumed have faced such tactics before. They adapt quickly. But they've never faced human tactics," Kate replied. "Our approach to warfare is fundamentally different from anything in coalition doctrine. We specialize in chaos and doing the unexpected." Captain Kim nodded slowly. "It could work. Human ships are smaller and more maneuverable than coalition vessels. We could get in close, hit their support structures, and get out before they can respond." "The risk is enormous," Vexthul warned. "If the strategy fails, both our species could be wiped out." Kate met his four-eyed gaze. "And if we do nothing, they'll definitely be wiped out. The coalition has tried the direct approach for centuries. It's time to try something new." 3 days later, the combined human coalition fleet moved out toward the Kepler sector. Kate stood on the bridge of the human cruiser Defiance, which had been designated as the flagship for the joint operation. Through the main screen, she could see the massive coalition dreadnoughts moving in formation around the smaller, faster human vessels. Vexthul had transferred to the Defiance to serve as overall fleet commander, a decision that had shocked many in the coalition military. To have a Zephyrian commander take orders from human tactical doctrine was unprecedented. "Contact with enemy forces in 30 minutes," reported the navigation. Officer Kate studied the tactical display, showing the positions of both fleets. The void consumed had arranged themselves in a standard defensive formation, clearly expecting a traditional coalition assault. Their ships were massive, dark vessels that seemed to absorb light itself. "All ships, this is Commander Murphy," Kate announced over the fleet communication system. "Operation Chaos is a go. Human squadrons, begin your attack runs. Coalition forces, stand by for Phase 2. The human ships broke formation and accelerated toward the enemy fleet. They moved in small groups, each following a different trajectory and using different attack patterns. To the void consumed, it must have looked like chaos, which was exactly the point. The first wave of human ships struck the enemy formation like a swarm of angry insects. They targeted communication arrays, sensor platforms, and support vessels rather than the main battleships. The void consumed tried to respond, but their large ships couldn't track the fast-moving human vessels effectively. "Phase 2, go," Kate ordered. The coalition dreadnoughts moved forward, but instead of charging in formation, they followed the paths that the human ships had cleared. Where the enemy expected a massive frontal assault, they found precisely targeted strikes at their weakened points. The battle raged for 3 hours. The human ships darted in and out of the enemy formation, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted effectively. The coalition vessels followed up with devastating attacks on the targets that the humans had identified and weakened. "Enemy flagship is breaking apart," reported the tactical officer. "Their command structure is collapsing." Kate watched as the massive void-consumed mothership split in half, its dark hull venting atmosphere and debris. Around it, smaller enemy vessels were fleeing in disorder, their formation completely shattered. "All ships pursue but do not overextend," Vexthal ordered. "We have won this battle, but the war is far from over." As the enemy fleet retreated, Kate felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Vexthal standing beside her, his 4 eyes bright with what she had learned was joy among his people. "You did it," he said quietly. "Your tactics worked." "We did it," Kate corrected. "Human creativity and coalition strength, together." The aftermath of the battle was swift and decisive. Word of the victory spread throughout coalition space, and the void-consumed retreated to the outer rim of the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, they had been not just defeated but routed. More importantly, the battle had proven that humans and coalition species could work together as equals. The joint training programs expanded rapidly, and formal treaties were signed establishing humanity as a full member of the coalition. Kate found herself promoted again, this time to the rank of commander, and given authority over all joint human coalition operations. Vexthal was assigned as her permanent partner, a decision that pleased them both. As they stood together on the observation deck of the new Joint Command Station, watching human and alien ships working side by side in the shipyards below, Kate reflected on how much had changed. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked Vexthal. "Risking everything to protect me?" The alien commander was quiet for a moment. "When I first saw you, I saw weakness," he said finally. "I saw a soft little creature from a soft little world. I was wrong about everything. Not everything. I am small and soft compared to your people. But you are not weak." Vexthal turned to look at her with all 4 of his eyes. "You taught me that strength is not about size or claws or armor. It is about the refusal to give up. It is about finding solutions when others see only problems. It is about changing and growing and becoming more than you were." Kate smiled. "You learned fast." "I had a good teacher." Below them, a human transport docked next to a Zephyrian cruiser. Through the viewports, Kate could see human and alien crew members working together, sharing knowledge and techniques that would have been unimaginable just months ago. The alien commander who had once mocked her as weak had become